You know, we are in this sermon series entitled Seven. And I know it was a very creatively titled sermon series, Seven. It's just simply based off the seven churches, the seven letters that Jesus, through the Apostle John, wrote to the seven churches of Revelation. And the letters are found in Revelation chapter 2 and chapter 3. And today we are in the sixth church, the sixth week of this sermon series, Seven. And the church that we're going to be talking about today is the home of the Liberty Bell and the home of Independence Hall. I mean, this church is famous because Rocky climbed the stairs, and there's actually a statue to him today. They are famous for their sandwiches. Anybody know what church we're talking about? The Church of Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia, the church of brotherly love. But we're not talking about the church that is in eastern Pennsylvania. We are talking about one of the seven churches of Revelation that was originally in Asia Minor. Today, it's modern Turkey. And so this church sits about 30 miles east of the Aegean Sea in modern-day Turkey. And actually, the name for the city today, which still stands, is Alaşehir. So it is one of the major cities in Turkey, and there's some remnants of this ancient city, Philadelphia, that still stand today. Now, what's kind of interesting, it was King Attalus II. Okay, King Attalus II was the king of Pergamum, that he ruled for a good amount of time, but at the end of his rule, he just kind of gave his entire kingdom to Rome. Okay, and so he founded the city of Philadelphia, and it's named Philadelphia in order to honor his older brother. Kind of a neat little factoid there, right? And his sister city is the city Philadelphia in eastern Pennsylvania. But the original Philadelphia was founded right along the King's Highway. Now, the King's Highway was a major east-west trade route, and it was oftentimes called the gateway to the east. It was also identified as being the Little Athens. You know, they were consciously spreading the culture of Greece. And so when you saw the city of Philadelphia, well, you could really take in the culture of Greece. You could really take in what the city of Athens would feel like. But once again, as King Attalus II gave it to the Roman Empire, it simply became an outpost for Rome. Now, this whole region of modern-day Philadelphia, ancient Philadelphia, it's a volcanic region. And so the soil there was extremely fertile. It was rich. It was great for growing crops. And so this was an agricultural region. There were all kinds of farmers. And because of the farming, there was a great grape crop. All right, so they had the vineyards, and they were famous for their wines. And their wines rivaled the best of vineyards across Europe. Okay, and so they worshiped the god Dionysius, the god of wine and festivities. But you know, where there's volcanic activity, I mean, the benefits are the very fertile and rich soil, but you know, where there's a volcano, there's also fault lines. And so this region is also known for its earthquakes. And in fact, there was an earthquake in 17 AD that it rattled cities as far as 60, 80 miles away. And the aftershocks, the tremors would continue, not for days or weeks, but the tremors would continue for years. And because of the because of the earthquake activity, okay, there was a lot of uncertainty among the people. I mean, there's ancient writings that talk about how there were constant cracks in the walls. And so the population of Philadelphia was very transient. The people didn't want to stay. There was too much uncertainty, too many unknowns. I mean, the entire area was unstable. With those constant cracks in the walls, people would save for an entire year in order to fix their house. They would finally fix it, and all of a sudden, another tremor would strike, and that crack reappeared in the walls. And so the people lived with this great sense of disappointment. They lived under this stress of economic stress and uncertainty. And then the Christians, they were persecuted. And they were being persecuted, they were being sold out by the Jews who lived there in Philadelphia. Remember, in all of these regions, worship of Caesar was oftentimes required of the residents. Now, the pagan resident, I mean, they were already polytheistic. They already had all of these gods. And so to pledge their allegiance to one more god, to pledge their allegiance to Caesar, well, to them it was no big deal. But for Jews who were strictly monotheistic, and for Christians, oh, they would never do that. And so the Jews were able to strike a deal with Rome. They did not have to pledge their allegiance, or they didn't have to worship Caesar as being God, but they promised to be good citizens. And because they were good citizens and they were fulfilling their promises, Rome kind of gave them this exemption to where they did not have to pledge their worship to Caesar. But the Jews had to keep a record of everyone who belonged to their synagogue. And if you didn't belong to their synagogue, well, then you were forced to pay homage to Caesar. So you can see, for the Christian living in this region of Philadelphia, it was extremely unstable. I mean, there was all of this uncertainty that was constantly in their lives. Not only physical uncertainty and instability from the earthquakes and the volcano, but even the persecution and the political unsettledness. They were extremely nervous, which makes me think about us. Okay, they didn't know what was going to come next. And so they lived in fear or in uncertainty. How about you? Are you living in fear? Maybe there's a certain sense of instability in your life, uncertainty. That seems like every time you get footing, all of a sudden you get shaken, and all of a sudden you find yourself off balance. Maybe it's health for you or for a loved one. Or maybe you're getting knocked off your feet financially. Just when it seems like you're back up on your feet, something else just smacks you out of the blue, and before you find it, there you are struggling and stressing over finances again. I mean, the holidays are just around the corner. And you got all the stress of family and friends who you haven't seen since last year descending upon your house. And you know that every time you get together, it erupts. There's the issues, there's the difficulties, the butting of heads. Maybe your blood pressure is just kind of starting to creep up because you know what's coming ahead and you feel like you're going to crack. And you just want to throw your hands up and walk away. Well, see, what I find just amazing is that these letters that Jesus wrote to these 7 churches are still so relevant to us today and the things that we face in our world. See, just as Jesus gave direction to the Christians, the church in Philadelphia, he gives those same directions to us today, some 2,000 years later.